play certain roles, you get more points. For example, if I'm playing tank and I lose a game where I actually performed pretty damn well, I will lose like max like 20, 21, 22, 25 points. I've had games where I'm not even a good DPS player. I'll play DPS and I'll do decent, like I'll carry, but I do decent, and I will lose significantly less points than what I would have lost on tank. And support is actually even worse. Like support is actually insane, where it's like you have to be doing big damage and big healing to get the maximum point value. Which, to be fair, if you actually are really good doing both at the same time, you do get decent amount of points. But if you're just doing your job correctly, like you're doing your healing, you're ulting properly, you're staying alive, you actually get shit points, and it's really bad. I think that it should be not based on that at all. I think that every role, no matter what it is, should be getting the same amount of points. Like if I play tank for an entire game, I shouldn't get 2 points less or 3 points less or punish 2 points less or 3 points less. Especially if you're playing like tank where nobody wants to play the role. No one wants to play tank. Nobody ever fucking wants to play that shit, right? So if you play a role that gets punished a lot for playing in ranked, nobody's gonna want to do it. It's already not that fun, quote unquote. I enjoy it, but I think a lot of people don't like playing it already. And so if you make it even harder for people to get into it, they're like, what's the point? What's the point?
The performance-based SR just needs to go, but like nobody's concentrating on that. If you are playing to live as tank and you aren't just like farming damage, you're gonna be punished for it as a tank player. But like, why? Why is that fair? If I don't get over 20, I'm throwing my PC out the window.
I got 20.
Do you know how much I got?
What did you gain?
I got 15. I don't even know.
What? Wait, your KDA looks fine. What?
Legitimately, like, I peel, I bubble my allies, I try to shield for them, I try to help my team out, I play to live, I hold down the objective, plus 15. That's the thing is, like, you guys are telling me, like, you play a different play style, play a different hero. Like, I hear what you're saying, right? But hear me out. I shouldn't have to exploit the game in order to climb. That's my frustration. Yes, I could play Punisher, walk down main, and just hold left click and lose less on a loss. Or if my team is losing, just go Moon Knight and just start farming damage the rest of the game. But I don't want to do that. This game is actively trying to get you to not be a team player. Like, that's why I'm frustrated, because the game's design is incentivizing you to do all the wrong things. We need to talk about the tank tax. As you know, even though I'm a DPS main, I will typically fill to tank or to support whatever the team needs at the time. I have no problem flexing for my team, and I actually enjoy flexing for my team, and I like being a team player. But the problem is that's actively punishing me in the rank system. Let me start first by asking, how many games can you win as a 5v6? If someone on your team DCs, what are your chances of winning that game? Odds are pretty low. But let's also put it another way. Let's say one of your supports die as you're walking up to try and fight for the objective. How difficult do you think it would be to try and push in that 5v6 to try and take that objective? Probably pretty difficult, and you know that you'd be forced to regroup just to wait for that one person. Now let's say you lose a tank in a typical 2-2-2 setup. How difficult do you think it would be to try and take space and try and secure kills to try and fight for the objective? Or if you were walking up while down a DPS, how difficult would it be to try and do damage, apply pressure, and secure picks while down a player? No matter what, in any of these situations where you are down a player, it is extremely difficult to try and win a fight, which is the reason why a lot of times the pick that is the most important in a fight is the first one. You have a very high chance of winning any 6v5 fight and an extremely higher chance of winning a 6v4 fight. And I've made a video talking about this before, but a lot of the value doesn't come just from final hits. It comes from who gets the first final hit. It comes from the actions that helped you secure that first kill. Because there are a lot of final hits that happen in the game that are nothing more than cleanup finals. So even though it's easy to flex final hits at the end of the game, it doesn't really mean a lot if most of your finals were nothing more than cleanup finals after the fight was already won anyway. Tanks as well typically don't do a lot of damage, and they're not going to secure a lot of finals, but they're really good at taking space and taking out resources and pulling attention from the enemy team. Now, we all know that there's a performance-based SR system built into Marvel Rivals. And despite the fact that it's supposed to matter less the higher you climb up in rank, it still technically affects you. And it's really obvious that the more efficiently you try to play your role, the more actively you're getting punished for doing so. Because the game really doesn't take into consideration deaths all that much, even though deaths matter far more than how much damage you're doing. Because like I said in the example before, it's very difficult for any team to win a 6v5. So I would much rather have a player that has fewer kills and fewer deaths than a player that has high kills and high deaths. Being good at the game doesn't mean doing a lot of damage. There are a lot of different ways to help your team that don't involve doing damage, and sometimes are absolutely necessary. Now, what I'm going to go over is sort of what I've called the tank tax, but this also applies to supports and anyone that acts as a team player. I'm just going to list off a bunch of things that don't involve doing damage, but are still important in helping your team win. First, prioritizing survival is not rewarded. As if you are a DPS that is constantly running in, doing damage, and dying a lot, yes, your damage numbers will go up, but it doesn't mean that you're helping secure or hold the objective. And sometimes the best thing you can do to help your team is by doing nothing at all and simply retreating and regrouping and getting to a safe spot so you're not staggered farther. And since dying a lot doesn't punish a player, they're actually incentivized to keep running it down because they'll just keep doing more and more damage, and even a DPS player that performs absolutely poorly will still only lose maximum of 20 points, despite the fact that they were actively harming their team's chances of winning. Because when you are down a player, you actually have to back up, retreat, and give up space temporarily until you can retake it again safely. So naturally, by giving up space, your damage is going to be less. Now, another thing, not all damage is good damage. We are currently in what is in sort of a support meta, and support ultimates are really strong. And the best way to do damage is to damage the tanks. But damaging the tanks ultimately gives you more damage numbers, but you're also charging support ultimates. And if you already have your ultimate at the time, then all you're doing is charging the enemy support ultimates up. There are legitimate times where I won't attack because of the fact that I know I'll just end up feeding the enemy support ultimates. But now, understanding how the system works, I know that in those moments, even though I'm making the correct play and the smart play to help my team, I am actually harming my ability to gain any SR points because I'm not doing damage. There are also moments where I will pause and not kill someone because I'm trying to delay and stagger their death even longer. So much so to the point that someone else will swoop in and probably get the final hit. Now, this might only get us 2 or 3 more seconds, but in a competitive setting, you want to try and fight for every second that you can get. It's another one of those moments where I know I'm doing the correct play, but I'm also going to be punished for it later because I'm not the one doing damage and securing the kill. Another thing that can happen is when you're playing, say, a dive tank and you dive in on the enemy backline, sometimes multiple people will turn to try and attack you. In those moments when multiple people are turned on you, you have to play a lot more defensively and a lot more passively, because what you're prioritizing right there is your survival and pulling attention and resources out of the enemy so that way your team can have a better advantage on the other side of the field. I can't just be mashing my abilities mindlessly trying to pump in a lot of damage because of the fact that if I die in that moment, I'll put my team at a disadvantage and probably lose them the fight. But the performance system doesn't see pulling attention and resources as valuable. It only takes into consideration damage. So even though what I'm doing is helping my team, it's still hurting me. Another thing that I do that I don't see anyone else do, even up in Celestial, is I'm destroying destructibles such as penny nests, clones, squids, beacons, amplifiers, etc. And people who watch my streams know when they watch me that I am the only one lots of times shooting and destroying these things. It doesn't matter if I'm on tank, DPS, or support, I'm usually the one shooting them. And with how many destructibles there can be in a game sometimes, there's a lot of time spent not doing damage to the enemy. So even though I'm destroying penny nests and destroying clones and squids and helping my DPS who are running in and doing damage, at the end of the game, I'm punished for it because I'm the only one willing to do it, while my DPS get the freedom of being able to just run in and just focus on only doing damage. I'm also a player that whether I'm on DPS or I'm on tank, I'm actively peeling for my backline all the time. And anytime you're peeling or marking someone, you are naturally going to do less damage overall because of the fact that they're pulling your attention away. And even though you're not doing damage in that moment, you're still providing value for your team by keeping your backline alive and allowing them to heal the rest of your team. Marking someone like, say, a Wolverine or a Spider-Man is another great way to help your team, but is actively hurting you because the best way to, once again, get damage numbers is to shoot the tanks. But when there is an enemy Wolf or Spidey on the enemy team that's doing a really good job at harassing your team, it is in your best interest to mark those characters to try and shut them down so that way your team has the ability to make plays again. So even though peeling and marking are very strategic advantages to give to your team, you are actively being hurt by being a team player. Now, even though this affects everybody who plays as a team player, I call it the tank tax because typically the tanks are going to feel this more than anyone. But at the end of the day, if you play DPS or support as a team player as well, you're still going to be punished for this. And this is what sucks the most, is that the game incentivizes you to not be a team player. It is not encouraging teamwork. It's encouraging you to run it down and play as selfishly as possible. I have even seen people in my games where they have felt like the team was losing and they switch to someone like Moon Knight and just try to farm damage as much as possible to lower the amount of SR that they lose. And considering how many games I've had where my teammates have wanted to give up and we managed to pull out a win, Marvel Rivals not only incentivizes people to play selfishly, but it also encourages them to. The Marvel Rivals SR system encourages people to play selfishly, and it encourages people to play wrong. People who have the highest deaths in the lobby shouldn't get the MVP status, because if you have a lot of finals but you also have a lot of deaths, all you get is a participation trophy in my mind. Because if you're not alive to help capture an objective or hold an objective, you weren't really helping your team. This performance-based SR system where it rewards damage and doesn't punish deaths is exactly how people are so easily able to climb with negative win rates. It also rewards certain heroes more than others, because even if you compare it only to that other hero at the same rank, bad players tend to just spam a lot of damage, and good players will do a lot more efficient damage. A great example as to why this really doesn't work very well is Overwatch. Back in the day, they tried to reward SR based off of performance, and with that system, Mercy players who were heal botting ultimately got more SR than the other Mercy players who did less healing overall. But if you play Overwatch, you know that good Mercy players are damage boosting more than they're healing. So even if you compare to other heroes at the same rank, it's not always a fair comparison. You might have a Mantis on your team running triple support, so overall that Mantis will probably do less healing and more damage boosting. But if you're comparing that Mantis in a triple support team comp versus a Mantis being played in a 2 support comp, the Mantis in the 2 support comp is naturally going to have more healing. So no matter what, even when you're comparing hero to hero, it doesn't really matter. Without the context of the game and understanding why players took the actions that they did, it's impossible to know what a good performance is. You cannot look at the scoreboard at the end of the game and determine much of anything anything. You can take guesses, but realistically, you need to see the context. Even if you look and you see that your support's healing numbers are overall lower than the enemy's supports, you might be quick to think that that's a healer diff, when you could watch back the context of the game and realize that the supports were spent the entire game trying to patty cake because there's a daredevil on them. So naturally, while they're healing each other, the rest of the team falls over. And in the context of that situation, it wasn't a healer diff, it was the fact that no one was peeling. This is why I really don't like stats, I don't really like the scoreboard, and I don't like stat patterns. Pumping stat numbers is not how you win the game. Kills are supposed to lead to better objective control, but if you've watched me play and you've watched my videos, you know that there's ways to control the objective that just involve not dying. I have won many games where our team overall has fewer kills because we just played more efficiently. And I want the system to reward the players who play strategically, who play efficiently, and play to win. And the only way to do that is not to reward performance, but to reward people who are winning. We should also reward players who are willing to fill to the roles that people don't want to play. And as much as people complain about the support role right now, there's still not enough support players. There's also not enough tank players. As a DPS main, I don't think I ever get to play DPS much anymore because of the fact that there's just too many DPS players in high elo. And a lot of times when they fail to tank or support, it's actually really bad because of the fact that they've been encouraged for so long to just run it down that they don't usually have very good positioning. They don't play to live like they should. They play as if their deaths don't matter, when on support and tank, it matters more than anything. This performance-based system is just really frustrating to play with. It makes it so even if you're winning and even if you're climbing, to see that your DPS with 20 deaths got more points than you who only had 6 deaths really takes away a lot of the motivation to play. And I'm not alone in this. Many people from their own experiences have noticed that if they duel with someone, if they're DPS, they naturally get a lot more points than their tank or support duos. And this system doesn't just hurt tanks and support players, it also hurts the DPS players who are willing to help their team a lot more. We need to change the way that the system rewards points. We need to change the way that the system rewards MVP, because damage and final hits are not the only way to help your team. We need a system that encourages people to work together and play as a team, because currently, as it stands, it just rewards the selfish playstyle. It also hurts people as it leads them to believe that they're doing a good job when in reality they aren't. I fully believe that the game could be designed in a way that actually teaches you to be a better player, and it also encourages you to be a better player. Right now in Rivals, there's a lot of players with huge egos and very selfish playstyles, and it's no surprise when you see how MVP is rewarded, and when you see who gets the most SR at the end of the game. If NetEase wants Rivals players to work together, then they should encourage them to do so. That's my thoughts on the tank tax. I hope you found it interesting. Let me know in the comments below if you have felt the tank tax personally, and thanks for watching.